Hello, and welcome to the 28th video in my Punishing Graven lore series. Today we will cover the second chapter of the Floating Record stories, Cinder. Branching off from the main story, we take the time to learn about a mysterious construct from a land far, far away, and his journey to rediscover who he is, as he confronts the shadows hiding in his lost memories. Now without any further delay, Floating Record Chapter 2, Cinder. Deep in an underground bunker, a construct finds himself alone and confused, with no recollection of who he is or how he got there. The construct's name is Noan, but at this point he is unaware of this fact due to his amnesia. He leaves the bunker, walking outside to find a bag of familiar items he assumes are his, including a pair of glasses and a set of twin swords. Soon he is found by a team of Babylonia constructs, who try to question him about his origins, but the man remains just as clueless as them. After much deliberation, they decide to take him back to their camp, thinking he might just be another construct suffering from mind deviation. At the camp, he is surrounded by the lost and wounded when he sees a medic tending to a commandant, and the sight of the medkit brings with it feelings of nostalgia. He offers to help tend to the commandant's wounds, and while they talk, the commandant suggests writing down any details that might help him remember who he is, and the next day he does just that. In the process of writing, Noan discovers he is quite the artist, with the act bringing up memories of his childhood. He remembers a masked woman named Julie, his mother, throwing his drawings into the fire as she berates him for being childish. They live in the poorest section of Oslam, taunted and ridiculed daily due to the residents' hatred of his mother for her involvement in a prior riot. She sends him to work with the head of the cargo crew, a woman named Rachel. Rachel pretends to put the boy to work, really letting him spend his time in a secret library, where he spends his days immersed in the various books. On an ordinary day like any other, he returns home from his fake job to find his mother with a wounded Rachel. Hiding behind a curtain, he listens in as they talk, learning that Rachel was also once a part of that infamous riot from long ago, and that Ashler had used the chaos of the situation to murder his father. Rachel gets up to leave and pulls back the curtain Noan was hiding behind, and the two make the boy swear to keep everything he heard secret. Rachel leaves and his mother puts him to bed as he showers her with questions, none of which will receive answers. But she assures him that Rachel has a plan to shake up the train to its very core and change their lives. He wakes up from his memories to the sight of a young construct, a girl named Lillian, who will be taking him to Medical Center 9 to receive treatment for his amnesia. She gets up to leave and Noan sees she was messing with a toy firefly. He takes it as the item feels familiar to him, and at the first touch, an image of a man in black forces its way into his mind. He asks the girl where she found the toy, but she can't remember, since she had assumed it was just a lost trinket from one of the children. While unfortunate, this doesn't discourage him, since he at least managed to remember a couple of details about his life. He boards the transport, listening in as the squad members talk about Greyraven and the increasing number of constructs turning traitor. They arrive at the med zone, just in time to save a construct named Talbot. As Noan fights off the corrupted, the weapons in his hand feel right at home, and this allows him to remember that he was once a captain of Cargo Crew Team 8, once seen as a dream job, but ever so slowly becoming a symbol of submission to the royals who oppressed the lower-level citizens. After the fighting, they all rush to the medical camp with a survivor Talbot found while investigating the wiped-out squads. Since Palia Force and the destruction of the train, things have been hard on the ground teams, who are still suffering from a lack of supplies and an influx of wounded, but since the twins' defeat, things have been steadily improving for those in the refugee camps. Noan takes a seat beside the girl, as the squad talk about those who defected, wondering why none of those who left ever came back to help. Talbot suggests that by becoming an Ascendant, he could control the corrupted and end the punishing disaster, with the rest of the squad shutting him down, as that line of thought alone was enough to justify calling the Purifying Force. As Talbot leaves, some of the refugees begin talking about something called blessing boxes, that bring in revenue from those desperate to join the train, and the mention of these items sends Noan back into his memories. He remembers his time in the lower levels, working to build the boxes that would allow those lucky few to join the train. Only that lucky few grew far too quickly. Those unskilled winners were allowed to join the Bumblebee crew, where they would be lent out to do menial tasks in exchange for their pay. These tasks were simple compared to what the train natives had to do, and as the size of the Bumblebee crew increased, the natives' animosity grew along with it. The lower residents of the train soon realized their issue begin and end with the way the aristocrats run things, and everyone, both cargo and Bumblebee crew, understand that if the situation continues as is, a change will come soon enough. whether it be by pen or sword. In the blink of an eye, 2 years had passed, with the living conditions on the lower levels of the train deteriorating at an exponential rate, as more work was demanded of the natives for a fraction of the compensation. Slowly their hatred pointed at the cargo crew, who paraded the blessing boxes, and the cargo crew grew to resent the aristocrats, who forced them to continue the box's promotion. The anger of all the citizens, coupled with their frustration at the upper class, and the despair of knowing they have no way to change their situations, only added to the volatility. Suddenly the cabin is flooded with music from the aristocrats, and while normally a sign of tone-deaf mockery, Rachel says to see it as the aristocrats ringing their own death bell. While they sarcastically sing along, a guard appears and slams his fist into Noan's face, shocking him awake. He had slipped into his memories while his mind was being analyzed, and thanks to the help of the medical staff, his mind was now fully stabilized. She mentioned his mind was tampered with, and that it was likely the cause of his amnesia, but if all goes well he should begin to recover after his treatment. He gets up to go find Talbot, when the purple-haired girl stops him, begging him not to leave her alone. She decides to stay at the camp with the girl, who tearfully introduces herself as Lithos. Time passes and Noan listens in on another conversation between former residents of Oslam. They warn against putting all your confidence in a single source, and one of the refugees is reminded of a woman named Rachel from long ago, someone who promised to lead the train to a revolution that never came. Before any of her plans could come to fruition, she was betrayed by Julie's son, a boy named Noan, and at the mention of this name, all the pieces fall into place. One day, while sitting with his mother, a number of guards arrived to take her into custody, under suspicion of tampering with financial records. Not having seen her the next day, Noan searches the train, finding her in a cell in the middle levels of cargo storage. He confronts her about the rumors and accusations, and she confirms them all. He can't understand why she would do this knowing the risks, and she has no interest in explaining, only asking that he trust in her plan for a better future. Finally, for the first time in his life, she takes off the mask and gives him an honest answer. She always got in the way of his hobbies because he was a whimsical child, and she didn't want him losing sight of the world, but her attempts to protect him from pain ended up causing him the most pain of all. She finally allows herself to voice her candid thoughts, and no one tells her that they can turn over a new leaf and start over, but it's far too late for that. She has made too many mistakes, and her choices have finally caught up with her. Hearing the guards getting closer, she wishes him farewell, telling him to wait for Rachel. There are so many things he has left to say, words and feelings that will never see the light of day. He tries to fight his way back to the cell and is knocked out, waking back up in the commoner carriage. The next day, the guards return, bringing with them news of Julie's death and the inconclusive results of her trial. Everyone involved pays a steep price, save for the aristocrats working alongside her. A month later, Rachel returns, and after learning of Julie's death, takes Noan as her apprentice, training him so he lives up to his mother's last wish, to become a version of himself he can be proud of. Months later, when coming back from his usual daily training, he finds a boy being abused by the upper-level guards. He tries his hardest to ignore it, but fails, jumping in to save the boy, named Field, by threatening the guards. Before he's killed for his actions, two captains named Nino and Shauna step in and convince the guards to leave without causing too much trouble. Rachel returns and gives Noan a well-deserved scolding, reminding him that he is no hero, and that he needs to choose his battles wisely. After the incident with the guards, Noan noticed a sudden change in the cargo crew members. They became more hospitable, even inviting him to join their next delivery mission. Seeing how he was always around Rachel, and she has a real knack for picking people, they assumed there must have been something different about him, and after seeing the events of the other day, they were certain. Noticing how much time the two boys spend together, Rachel warns Noan about Field's father, a man named Bancroft, and while she doesn't mind Noan hanging around the boy, everything she says regarding their plans for revolution need to stay secret, even from him. The others in the cargo crew share this sentiment, urging Noan not to get too close, since his father is a known snitch who will sell out others to gain favor from the higher-ups. He largely chooses to ignore these warnings, noticing the parallels between Field's treatment and that of him and his mother. 2 months fly by and Bancroft's situation worsens. He continues to lose goods, and his team keeps failing missions no matter what he tries. The two boys talk in the library room about the lengths Bancroft has gone to get medicine for Field's illness, and how much of a burden he feels he is. Noan offers to help his father's team, but Field turns him down, not wanting the rest of the train to turn on his friend. The very next day, Field disappears from the library, leaving behind nothing but his notebook and a toy firefly, so Noan pleads with the rest of the carriage to join his search for his friend. They scour every inch of the lower levels, finding nothing but a single thread from his scarf. The next day, Bancroft returns from his mission, and Noan brings him up to speed. They find out he was likely hiding amongst his father's shipment of goods, and if so, would mean he is still in City 74. Bancroft leaves the train to search for his son, marking this as the last time Noan sees either of them. He continues to train daily, keeping the Fireflies a memory of his missing friend, and a year after his mother's death, he passes Rachel's test and earns the right to join the cargo crew on outside missions. This is his first time outside, and he looks out over a field of fireflies, remembering that promise he made to Field, wondering where his friend was now, if he was even alive. Suddenly, he's forced out of his memories, finding Lithos had put him to sleep to help treat his mind. She says the device was disconnected during a fight, and Noan looks up to see Talbot arguing with the other constructs about wanting to join the Ascendants, having been told he can pass the filtering. Hearing this, Noan remembers his own experience with the Ascendants, how after his sacrifice on the train, he was taken to an Ascendant working under Vonnegut, where he was remade. Noan refused to join their ranks, and as a result had his memories wiped so they could start fresh. After being lost in thought, he sees the constructs running out in a panic, as the medical center is attacked by Corrupted. Noan helps fend off the attacks as red tide covers the streets, preventing them from making an escape. Knowing that this could be the precursor to an Ascendant's arrival, they turn on Talbot, when Noan steps in saying he was the one with the connection to the Ascendants. He volunteers to go get reinforcements, and leaves the medical center, encountering several tide projections, including a projection of Bella. Not having the time to stay and listen to a projection, he continues on, finding a squad of constructs under attack by Corrupted. He saves the constructs and in the process reveals his Ascendant abilities, taking control of the Corrupted and forcing them to self-destruct. He tries convincing them to head to Medical Center 9, but they refuse to trust the words of an alleged Ascendant. After being cornered, Noan's instincts take over, and virus spikes shoot out towards the constructs. He rushes forward to intercept his own attack, and seeing this, the constructs decide to take the risk and listen to his words. They call a nearby elite squad to handle Noan himself, and head to the medical center for a rescue mission. After they leave, Lithos appears from the shadows, leaving Noan shocked that she managed to follow him through the tide. The more she speaks, the more Noan picks up on the odd phrases she uses, until it finally clicks. He remembers that Lithos is actually an Ascendant inhabiting the body of a young girl, and he was the one who transformed Noan. This is the fourth time Noan has had his memories reset, and each time he refuses to join Lithos. Once again, he dodges Lithos' request to join him, refusing to answer until he receives all of his memories. Lithos warns him that every time he remembers his past, his mind deviates, causing him to lose control. But still, Noan wants to move forward. The moment he touches the Ascendant's hand, the dam breaks, and all the lost and forgotten memories come surging back. As the torrent dies down, he finds himself back on the train, just 7 hours before the fighting begins. With the end being so close, Rachel finally answers all of Noan's questions. The reason Rachel was always so competent and well connected is because she was working with Ashler, who would help get connections to suppliers and resources. Ashler's demands kept piling up, until one day he asked her to get rid of Noan's father. She tried to save both him and Julie, but the situation got too far outside her control. Afterwards, Julie joined in on her plan to fight back against the aristocrats, to create a better world for Noan. Unknown to him, Julie cared for him greatly, and she kept him at a distance for fear of her crimes affecting him. As their conversation winds down, Rachel passes out drunk, and Assad has Noan hand him his coat, where the two discover a wire hidden within a secret pocket. The next day, Noan wakes up to a commotion on the carriage. Over 30 armed guards have barged into the lower levels, displaying the twisted corpse of Assad. A snitch had leaked the cargo crew's plans, and the aristocrats united to crush the rebellion before it could begin. Noan sneaks through the vent to get into a better position, watching as Rachel and the guards confront one another. The moment the guards become occupied with the citizens, Noan throws a dagger at the ceiling, shattering the light, and chaos takes over as the crew members attack and kill the guards. No longer having the luxury of turning back, the fighting heats up. The cargo crew makes good progress as the guards head into their territory, encountering traps and attacks from unexpected angles. But as soon as they push forward, they lose any home field advantage they once had, and the closer they get to the upper levels, the fiercer the fighting, as their forces are split up and slowly wiped out. During the fighting, Rachel blew up one of the carriages, separating the upper and lower levels. Noan leaves the rest of his group behind to protect the civilians, as he crosses the exposed snowfield to find Rachel. Making his way to the top of the upper-level carriages, he finds her heavily wounded. They lost their fight, only getting a chance to escape when Ashler and Jamila's factions begin fighting amongst themselves. Before the guards hunt her down, she tells Noan to kill her, to be the hero who ended Rachel's rebellion, and hopefully they will allow him to live and take her place, giving them time to rebuild and try again. To him, Rachel was his leader and mentor, almost a second mother. He can't bring himself to do it, so she makes the choice for him, grabbing his hand and forcing him to pull the trigger. Following the guard's arrival, he is captured and placed in a cell to await trial, as the aristocrats and royals deal with their own internal conflict. 2 weeks later, he is brought to a temporary council to face judgment. If he sides with Ashler against the royals, he is promised Rachel's position and all the benefits that come with it, but it would not change the situation on the lower levels. Time and again, he was told to live his own life, to not repeat the mistakes of the past, and he decides to bet on that faint chance. He denounces Ashler, branding Rachel's terminal, along with all the evidence of his black market arms deals. But it wasn't enough. Ashler already had the nobles in his pocket, and with minimal effort manages to turn the accusation back on Noan. In a last-ditch effort, he throws the terminal to Jamila's faction, and in the chaos that follows, he is shot by Ashler's guards and thrown off the train. Laying in the snowfield, his consciousness drifts away, sinking into the void. Suddenly, a voice echoes out telling him that Medical Center 9 is in danger, and hearing this, he is shocked out of his memories, finding that Lithos has disappeared. He rushes back to camp to find the corrupted arrive before reinforcements. Everyone who could evacuated with Lillian, the rest stayed back to hold off the corrupted. In the end, the fighting and virus exposure took its toll, and without the ability to control the virus, no one could not stop Talbot's infection from turning him corrupted. He decides not to find the other group, since his presence brings nothing but problems. He calls out to Lithos. If he joins him and gains control over this power, would he actually be able to save anyone? Or will he end up like Rachel, constrained by the very powers she sought out for help? Before he steps into the woods, a bullet grazes his shoulder. The distress signal was answered by the same commandant he met earlier, who turned out to be Grey Raven's commandant. And after hearing Noan's story, he offers a choice. Return to Babylonia, where they can try to fix this anomaly, or die here before he becomes a true Ascendant. He decides to take another chance and agrees to go to Babylonia, but before he can take a single step forward, Lithos suddenly appears and stabs him in the back. He rushes forward to take out Commandant, when Lucia arrives just in time to force him back. To get away, he distorts Lucia's visual sensors, grabs Noan, and makes his retreat. With Lithos finally making his appearance, Noan is thrust back into his memories. He wakes up in a hospital bed, having been saved by Cheng Yu after being thrown off the train. He is taken to a nearby refugee camp, where Jamila sets him up with funds to hold him over until he makes a full recovery. And almost a year later, he leaves the base, making his way to City 74 to find Field, with the directions from Rachel's terminal guiding him. While on his journey, he runs into Bella, who had abandoned her old camp in search of her mother. The two travel with each other, eventually joining the ranks of the scavengers to gather supplies on their journey. On the outskirts of City 74, they find a group of people talking about the events of the rebellion 4 years ago. Since then, Jamila managed to consolidate her hold on the train, thanks to the cargo crew rebellion stripping Ashler of his physical defenses, and Rachel's terminal exposing his political crimes. His influence among the aristocrats waned immensely. Under Jamila, Nino took control of the cargo crew, as Asler fell deeper into desperation, even trying to sell out the train to the Ascendants before being confronted by a new construct named Sophia and a team from Babylonia. Afterwards, they head to the station within the city, splitting up to conclude their own respective journeys. Bella waits for the train to find her mother, and Noan heads deep into the forest, searching for any trace of his long-missing friend. He read through Rachel's records of that night, about how the convoy was attacked by corrupted, and how she discovered the wounded field. To cover up her mistake, she made a terrible choice, choosing to leave the boy in the wasteland. Noan had tried to convince himself for 7 years that Field might have been alive, but when looking upon the singular blossoming tree, he finds the slightest bit of torn fabric clinging to the branches. No longer able to hide, Noan faces the truth of Field's death, thanking his friend for transforming him into a version of himself he can be proud of. Noan and Bella continued their journey, until one day they were ambushed by scavengers, resulting in Bella's death. And after that, Noan learned of Nino's passing from an old friend who left the train. Hearing that the situation on the train actually changed for the better, he realized nothing they did was in vain. While not being able to see the results themselves, those that gave their lives did make a difference in the end. He opens his eyes, finding himself trapped in a lighthouse. While trying to fight his way out, Lithos intervenes, intending to completely crush his mind and build him back from scratch. He fights back against the corrupted and successfully breaks Lithos' hold on his mind. He crawls his way to the exit, guided by the lives given to get him this far, as he's pushed forward by the voices of those he held most dear. He will never get over his past, but that's just fine. The blessings and burdens of his memories will serve as proof of their existence, and from this point onward, he carries on their legacies within himself. Meanwhile, Lithos has cornered Commandant and is prepared to deliver the final blow when Noan arrives just in time, shielding the two with a flash of lightning. One last time he rejects Lithos and attacks. The Ascendant doesn't even try fighting back, when suddenly Vonnegut appears and forces him to retreat. As the agent leaves, Lucia arrives with reinforcements, and they load the wounded constructs along with Noan onto the transports. On their way back to Babylonia, Noan regains consciousness, and Commandant asks him the same question he did when they first met back at the medical base. The name Shrek had once been amassed to protect him from the accusations that clung to him, to allow him to live away from the scars of his memories. Now he has learned to accept that all parts of his life represent him, a sign of acceptance of who he is. So now with full confidence, and as a reminder of the path his soul has chosen, he can finally face the world and call himself Noan. A few days after his arrival in Babylonia, Asimov found that the anomalies Lithos mentioned never existed. Noan had a special link due to Lithos meddling, and there was never even a danger of him losing control. Aside from the special connection device built into him, Noan is a regular construct. They decide keeping him away from other Ascendants is the best course of action for now, so he is assigned to the reinstated Dark Ares, Simon's squad. Now Noan begins his new life as a construct of Babylonia, fighting for humanity's future. The road he walks will be challenging, but with a steeled determination, Noan will walk his new path, guided by the light of his past, memories blazing in his heart like cinders burning, leading the way forward. Alright, congratulations, you have just finished Floating Record Chapter 2, Cinder Burns. I forgot what it was called for a second. Also, Cinder Burns is a fire name for a chapter. Super cool. Okay, so some last minute stuff. There was a node where he met Bella. When he met her projection, there was a flashback scene of his first meeting. He just went to pick up some weapons. It was a pickup mission that Rachel sent him on, and Bella was the one who was doing the drop-off, so they just met there very casually. I didn't say it explicitly, but Lithos is a dude, he's a trap. Get baited. And he also caused the betrayal incident. He was the Ascendant that connected with Revenge and essentially gave us Alpha. So, thank you, Lithos. Right, if you like Alpha, thank Lithos. So like Cinder Burns is that infamous super long chapter. It's actually not that long. It's still long, but it's not that long. It feels that bad because the text speed is really slow for some reason. There's a chapter like that, like chapter 5 or 6 that was like that. where just the scroll speed of the text was super slow. And the same thing happened here. And additionally, if you didn't notice in the story story section pages, Noan doesn't have an interlude, so all of his interlude material is stuffed into the chapter. So that, paired with the slow text speed, makes the chapter feel like it takes forever. Yeah, that's it. That's all I got. All right. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you all in the next video where we cover Chapter 20 of the main story, Across the Ruined Sea. That is also a fire name for a chapter.